Hey, wonderful. Thank you, Eric. You know, you were knocking on death's, door, but you made it back.
Lots of good friends.
You rely on the help of your friends. I hear that. So, and thank you everyone for being here. And thank you for those of you who are new to the space as well. This is indeed Medicine Buddha, of course, preceded by a little bit of a discography hour or 15 minutes of music, rather. So it's been really wonderful to practice with you all these years because I say this as we're nearing 5 years of this practice, this Monday night practice, which was only supposed to be a temporary practice to get us through the quarantine. And it just has kept going. So 5 years in, I guess in April next month, May, perhaps the end of this month, but I'll have to double check. But this is our 5th year coming up. So we're keeping it going. I guess is this the practice session that'll never end? you know. So thank you. And some of you have been a part of this since day one. I know many of you have, some of you, I don't know, I don't really see everyone on my screen, but thank you for being a part of this, however long you've been a part of this. Thank you so much. This is a space of healing. This is a space of really going deep into these practices and really trying to make them relevant for you and where you're at, right? I'm really grateful for all the practice leaders who take this practice when I'm not here and just, you expand on them, you innovate. I just really love that. It's a kind of permission that I didn't have when I was coming up in the lineage. Every time I tried to deviate, to be told, oh, that's not what we do, that's not the tradition, which is understandable, right? But these practices aren't sustainable until you get creative with them, I believe. If you're not creative and innovative, they just become so like rote or like you just kind of like go on autopilot. You lose a real connection and awareness of the dynamic, changing, living quality of these practices. They just become something you do, you know. Um, but really understand medicine Buddha and really all the Buddhas, right? Chinrezi, Tara, understanding deity practice as practice that has to be living and interesting and dynamic and fluid, right? To trust that these Buddhas that we're evoking tonight, for instance, Medicine Buddha, to trust that when we evoke Medicine Buddha is here, Medicine Buddha shows up, right? We are we are shaping emptiness into a medicine that is appropriate for us, that meets us where we are, right? Emptiness is the medicine. I would say emptiness is more than just the medicine. Emptiness is the goal, you know? And I would say medicine Buddha and all the Buddhas are the medicine to get us back to that experience of the goal, which is liberation. So medicine Buddha in this case is the bridge, right? Now we use this language in Shantideva's prayer at the end of our session, right? May I become a bridge for those who journey, right? A protector, right? May I become the medicine and the doctor, right? And this is what we're asking from emptiness itself. This is what we're praying to become, but this is also what we're asking from emptiness itself. May you become what I need to get back to you. Show me how to return back to remembering you. This is all we're only thing that we're doing in any deity practice in Buddhism. Particularly this lineage of Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, or Tantric Buddhism, right? We're trying to get back to the remembrance, right? And then the Buddhas are emerging to become the bridge for us to return back, right? Because we just can't say, okay, let's do emptiness, let's remember, right? What's that? How do you do that, right? But instead, we pray to emptiness, we pray for medicine, we pray for solutions, we pray to be shown, and then emptiness shapes itself into what we need, right? It shapes itself into Tara, it shapes itself into Medicine Buddha, right? Shapes itself into Chinrezi, right? Dare I say, emptiness shapes itself into Jesus, right? You know, emptiness takes the form of our most liberated aspirations, right? And that's the only way. And I'm not saying, well, obviously, emptiness can be shaped into poison, obviously, because voila, here's some samsara, right? So we're definitely like in some bullshit. Like samsara is just bullshit, right? So yes, emptiness can be shaped by our intentions, right? This is why we're getting clear about our intentions in practice. And our intentions are the expression of bodhicitta or awakened care, this altruistic attitude that may we all get free, right? May we all get free and may everything get free. May we free the samsara to return back to emptiness. May we free delusion so it may transform back into clarity and wisdom. Right? Because we're the problem. Samsara actually isn't the problem, right? It's our perception, it's our intentions, right? It's our lack of real compassion and wisdom. That's the problem, right? So we're like always fighting samsara or the carceral state, as I call it in New Saints. We're always fighting the world, right? But it's too external, right? When in fact the root of the issue is our minds. So how do we turn our attention back? The brain isn't the mind, but I'm just saying, like, how do you turn the attention, I would say, back inward, right? To begin to understand how to get clear, right? Which is what meditation is getting clear. When we get clear, right, then samsara begins to clear up. So instead of like, yeah, we have to do the work to be in the world, right? Because that's where people are. We're here to help and support people. And you have to have a deep internal practice of getting clear at the same time, right? Because yes, we're trying to reduce harm and violence and samsara, but we have to at some point understand samsara is not our home, right? There has to be a letting go of this and a returning back to the remembrance of emptiness, right? That's enlightenment, the remembrance. And Medicine Buddha and all the Buddhas help us to do that, right? So this is the practical means of deity practice. We're not just hanging out with Medicine Buddha, we're getting clear. Medicine Buddha is helping us to get clear, right? And that clarity also means healing as well. All the Buddhas do the same thing, right? A Lexus and a Hyundai is gonna get you to the same space, to the same place, right? You may call it a Honda, you may call it a Lexus, you may call it, a Lamborghini, but they're basically cars that take us from point A to point B. You know, I'll bet maybe a little like in different comfort levels, right? You like it it doesn't matter. It's going to take us somewhere, right? So this is what we're doing with Medicine Buddha. Yeah, Medicine Buddha is going to do the same thing Tara does, right? But because we have preferences, we think there's always going to be these differences between the Buddhas. You can pray to Tara for healing, right? You can pray to Chenrezig for compassion. Well, that's not the best thing because compassion and love, but like you can pray to like I don't know to well I'll just use I'm not going to use a deity that we don't practice with because you'll get curious and start asking questions. But you know, but the point is, you can ask any Buddha for anything. But because we feel a little more comfortable if there's a Buddha that raises their hand and says, "Listen, you can call me if you're feeling sick." If you get overwhelmed with choice, here, just call me. And then Tara raises her hand and says, okay, if you want to do compassion and care, just call me, right? And Chinrezi says, if you want to do love, just call me, right? But if you're not into choice, you can just stick with Tara, and Tara will take you all the way. If you love Chinrezi, Chinrezi will take you all the way, right? It doesn't matter, right? So there's no difference, right? There's no difference because what? Because everything emerges from the same source, the same essence, which is emptiness, space, and energy. Everything. There's nothing that exists that doesn't. At its core, at its essence, is not this coming together of emptiness, space, and energy. Right? So as Lauren Hill says, everything is everything. Right? Once you realize the nature of one thing, you realize the nature of everything. Right? Because there's no difference between anything except for the differences that we create in our minds because we're fabricating all of this, right? This is a dream, right? A dream that feels really fucking real because, yeah, that's what dreams do. They feel real, absolutely, right? And once again, I sat down this evening saying I have nothing to say. I was like, oh, I'm gonna just jump into practice, and here I am giving a Dharma talk, right? I don't do Dharma talks anymore. I just think that's like, I don't know. What's a Dharma talk? I don't know. I don't know anymore. I don't know what a Dharma talk is. I just sit down and open my mouth. you know. Which quite frankly is the easiest way to do this. I don't have all this time to sit around and write Dharma talks. Like you may have time to sit around and write Dharma talks. I don't have time. Listen, I'm just a full-time teacher. What do you think I have time to do every day? It's not sit around and read Dharma books and write Dharma talks, right? You know. Um, you know. So anyway, I don't know what I was saying. I just got off the track, but then here we go. Like here we go, offering ourselves to the feet of Medicine Buddha, surrendering, right, to this practice, right? And this is the energy is surrender, right? Like that there's a letting go that has to happen here, right? A relaxing and opening, and expanding. And so this is what we're trying to practice all the time, you know. In a way, it's like, how do you become submissive? You know, for all you Doms out there, right? And if you think I'm talking to you, I am. For all you who like to be in control, you know who you is. You know who you is, honey. At some point, there has to be a balance. How do I practice surrendering? Letting go of like this need to control, right? Knowing that, yeah, that need of around control is so much a part of how many of us have survived, right? But we're not trying to survive and practice. Like this isn't a fight or a struggle, even though, quite frankly, some of you think this is a struggle. Yeah, practice can feel like climbing up the rough side of the mountain, or as, I think about Jill Scott and her lyric, sometimes we all have to swim up the stream, right? So maybe it does feel like struggling to swim upstream, right? But I would encourage you in our practice in this session, what would it mean to just let go, to surrender, to actually try to practice no practice or non-efforting, right? Just to let the practice do the work for you, right? Because ultimately there's nothing happening to begin with, right? How do you just let the practice be, right? How do you surrender and just let this profound lineage of medicine Buddha, which is the profound lineage of all the Buddhas, right? Just emerge, awaken, and let it kind of like hold you, to let the practice hold you as part of your healing work, you know? Because always we're being asked to open, to expand, right? And as we get closer to spring, well, spring in this hemisphere, so I know people are joining us all over, right? So we're getting close to the equinox, not this weekend, but next weekend. You know, we're gonna get back into like our like herbal kind of plant work that I like to do in the spring with Medicine Buddha, the flowering, the blossoming, the opening, right? And feeling that those energetic bounds kind of dissolve and feeling our cells expand, right? To take in, right? And it feels hard right now because our habitual tendency right now is to kind of close down, to shut down as we're finishing up winter, right? Um, and still dealing with, you know, lots of cold and dark. Now the darkness has kind of retreated as the time has shifted again, right? But to notice the way that we're contracted and rigid, not just because of the weather, also because of, you know, just this moment of real, you know, intensity, you know, systemic collapse. And, you know, like it's like we want to shrink, we want to get small. And some of us do this naturally anyway, because it's a trauma response. In terms of survival, we shrink, we get small, right? But how do we relax and open, right? And lean into, right, the dream, right? Because you can't transcend the dream until you deal with the dream, till you tend to the dream, till you lean into the dream, right? Because the leaning into the saying yes to the dream is how we begin to figure out how we're creating the dream, right? So when we surrender into the dream, we get close to understanding the mechanisms of the dream itself, right? And you begin to understand how you're participating in the creation of this moment. But we have to say yes, we have to open, we have to experience what feels okay for us to experience, you know, bit by bit. Like we don't just experience everything all at once, right? You know, but we do bits and pieces at a time, right? That's what I mean by consuming the chaos or eating the chaos or just eating it. Like we're training, this is the path of experience. We're learning to experience bit by bit as much as possible, right? We're opening to it, we're eating it, right? And it's also why I call it metabolizing. So I have lots of language for this, right? To metabolize is to experience and to not react, right? But to respond. The reactivity is one of the many things that fuels, right? The workings of samsara. It's like our reactivity is like a turbine that generates this energy, this overreactivity, this hyperreactivity over and over again, right? Because the hyperreactivity is actually a form of distraction that keeps us from actually experiencing anything, right? But to experience samsara is to begin to be freed from samsara, right? And we're not experiencing as much of this as you think you are, you know? Like you have to, and what we're doing in our practice is learning how to touch the ground. We have to touch the ground. We have to touch the earth. And most of us aren't touching the earth. We're suspended in the air, right? And we think we're working it. We think we're doing it, but we're just treading air, right? But we're trying to land on the ground, to feel the ground, to feel the earth. Once you feel the earth, then there's real movement, there's real journeying that can happen, right? But you have to have the courage to touch the ground, and many of us are terrified because to touch the ground means that we begin to tell the truth, we begin to experience what's happening. We have to start dealing with the brokenheartedness because the brokenheartedness is rooted in the land, because the brokenheartedness isn't this just random suffering. The brokenheartedness is actually one of our greatest teachers, right? The brokenheartedness is teaching us about suffering, but we don't know how to get close enough to it because we don't know how to touch the earth, right? You know. So touching the ground, touching our experience, touching our bodies, right? Touching our hearts, opening, right, to these really profound medicines that are helping us to get free. And that freedom is the remembrance, the returning back to emptiness. Not emptiness as this nihilistic, void, cold experience, right? But emptiness in terms of a returning back or a remembering of our most profound, innate potential, fluidity, expansion, our boundlessness, our unlimitedness, right? When you start, and this is the last thing I'll say because I was supposed to have started practice 20 minutes ago, but like, maybe this is the practice. Maybe just me talking is practice, right? But you're not going to get off easy like that. If I had to fucking practice for years, you will too. Right? I love listening to my teachers give talks, but then they were like, okay, go and meditate. I was like, no, I don't feel like that's not interesting. The stories that my teachers told were much more interesting than the stories I was telling myself in practice. Anyhow, right? But like this returning back to emptiness, right? This returning back again, not nihilistic, not cold, not void, but potential, fluidity, openness, right? And I think that, sometimes when we get kind of like freaked out sometimes by our agency and our power, our creativity, by our fluidity. Sometimes we that scares us. And that fear is a reaction that actually ends up in a real experience of contracting and shutting down. And maybe like that's one of those like origin stories for how samsara was created. It's like, we were awakened beings and I don't know, something happened and we started reacting to our potential. And then that reaction resulted in limitation. We started getting limited, right? We started pushing away the fluidity and wanted to find safe space that we could control, like and manipulate it, right? And here and there and samsara appeared as this very limited experience that felt safe, but actually became carceral for us. And to remember in the practice, again, the point of this practice is to remember our unlimitedness. And emptiness is the expression of unlimitedness, of expansion, fluidity, movement, right? Of really touching the ground, touching the earth, right? So anyway, so that's where we're going to be working with, as we always do in our practice. Just a reminder to go ahead and get your prayer requests posted on the prayer doc as we begin. And as we begin, I really encourage you to allow your body to come into a position that feels appropriate for practice. And at the top of our practice, let's reflect on why you're practicing to begin with. And I'll give you your first intention for practice, which is to get free. We are practicing to remember. Our practice is a ceremony in remembrance of what we really are. To remember our awakened nature, which is to say, the remembrance of our emptiness, that our minds are this expression of emptiness and energies that are very conscious. We could say that our minds is just an expression of energy that is aware of itself. Energy held in boundlessness, unlimitedness, which is space itself, unlimited. And the nature of that just being completely free, like there's no there, right? So we're practicing to remember. And as we're practicing to remember, our remembrance, this ceremony of remembrance, is also helping to benefit, to help others to remember. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for other teachers who had remembered or who were practicing really intensely to remember, and how those ceremonies of remembrance inspired me and my work to remember for myself. And as we continue in this first opening stage of practice, I invite you just to reflect on how you're doing. You can do a check-in with yourself, right? How are you feeling, right? Where's the suffering? Where's the discomfort? You can reflect on the world right now, our communities, the countries that we're living in, these nation states, right? What's going on in the places that we live, what's happening on the lands that are holding us. How are we struggling? And as you're reflecting on these experiences, which aren't terribly comfortable, but, but as you reflect on them, somewhere there is somewhere in all of this reflection, there may be a clue around, I don't know, it's hard to articulate, but like there is something that is trying to get our attention. Right? There's something that's trying to communicate to us somehow that there's more than this experience of suffering or discomfort and what we're experiencing and living through in the world right now. That this isn't who or what we are, but these are definitely experiences happening, which is probably maybe the first sign is that these are experiences. Right? They're not inherently what we are, but these are experiences that we're feeling, we're in a relationship with. And that there's more than just this discomfort, there's much more. Because even in this discomfort is also joy, pleasure, gratitude, there's happiness for some of us. And even with an experience like gratitude, which for me is a doorway into even joy or happiness and so forth, that the gratitude is essential medicine for us. Like that's the gratitude is the medicine we have to really hold on to in this moment. And the ultimate gratitude is the recognition that we are not the suffering, but suffering is an experience. And though I have to like experience this, it's not inherently what I am. For me, that generates this profound gratitude that actually begins to open up much more space for me to be in relationship to the discomfort or the suffering. And so let's go further. Let's go a little deeper. So let's touch the seats. Let's notice the weight of our bodies in the seat rising to hold us. And this is when we're taking our seat, which is a very profound practice. Taking your seat, which is only to say that you are acknowledging that you're being held and you're surrendering to this holding by the seat to begin with, right? But to take your seat is to acknowledge the holding of the seats, allowing your body to take up space on the seat. And of course, beneath the seat, we begin to touch the earth. As we think about the earth, we are touching the earth. Right? As we touch the earth, the land, as the mother begins to touch us back. What does that touching feel like? And of course, this can be very subtle, very abstract, but what is it? What is your experience of this kind of energetic psychic touching of the earth? And how do you experience the earth, the land, touching you back? And can you surrender in this moment to that touching? And don't think about it too much. Just do it. Don't think, just do it. Surrender to being touched and really held by the land. And as you're surrendering, I want to invite you to offer to the land everything that you're struggling to hold for yourself. So, which means that I invite you to offer your suffering to the earth, your discomfort, be it fear, sadness, hopelessness, frustration, anger, rage, confusion, apathy. Offer your grief. just offering. It's just, there are many ways to do this. But in my practice, it's as simple as connecting to something I'm struggling with and just asking the earth to rise to hold it. Or imagining that you're giving your grief and offering it to the land in your imagination. Because the point is to disrupt our clinging to these experiences. And on cue, some of you are saying the earth cannot hold it. This is also the problem too, which takes time to work through, which is we think the earth is limited like we are. And both of those assumptions are not true. We are unlimited, the earth is unlimited. But what's helpful now is to really understand the unlimited nature of the earth, the land, because the earth, as an awakened being, right, as an enlightened being, is unlimited. Right? That awakened nature is just the remembrance of emptiness. So when we offer our suffering to an awakened being, be it the earth, be it Medicine Buddha, Tara, whomever, these awakened beings don't see our suffering or experience our suffering. They just experience emptiness. Because to remember your awakened nature is to relate to all phenomena, including other people's trauma, as an expression of emptiness, space, and energy itself. So maybe for some of us, the real struggle isn't our disbelief in what the earth can hold, but rather in trying to confront our loyalty and attachment to our own suffering. Maybe that's the real issue, not distrusting the earth, but trying to disrupt the ways in which we have come to be quite loyal to suffering. We are quite loyal, actually, to suffering. So which one is it for you? Are you afraid that the earth can't hold it, or are you afraid of disrupting your loyalty to discomfort? It could possibly be both. And when it's both, that's what I like to say, that your shit's really fucked up. That's a whole bunch of work to get through. So, but this is why we have Medicine Buddha every Monday night to work through it. Are you loyal to your suffering because your suffering is how you developed a sense of self identity? Is who you are derived from your experience of suffering? And why are we struggling to offer the suffering to the earth when in fact all we're doing is offering energy back to energy? It's like being afraid of hurting the ocean by dropping a drop of water in the ocean. It's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. You're just offering water back to water. But in the same way, this is the same thing. We're just offering energy back to energy. water back to the ocean, energy back to energy, emptiness back to emptiness, space back to space. It is only suffering in our experience, not in the experiences of the awakened ones, including the earth, and I would say all the elements as well. But I encourage you to keep going. I'm not in a hurry. I have nowhere to go, right? Because all of my shows are on the streaming service, so I'm not going to miss anything. So Golden Girls is waiting for me after this, so don't worry, you're not going to help me miss anything. So again, this basic practice, offering, letting go, offering to the earth, letting your mind, letting your imagination shape how this happens for you, right? But the point is to offer, to lay on the earth what we struggle to hold for ourselves, what we struggle with essentially, right? And the more we learn to do this, the more we practice this, the lighter, the more fluid we start becoming. And so to go even deeper, and this is getting into the main practice now, I encourage you to just notice, identify if you haven't already, but chances are you have been doing this, but to really begin to shift your attention to the thing that you're really struggling with right now. And let's get real, like, I guess, meta about this. I don't know how to use that word. I just put it out there, just hoping that may be the correct way to use it. When I say meta, like, not just the suffering of what feels like a very natural reaction to everything that's happening, to the fear, in terms of fear and despair and hopelessness and anger, right? But stepping back and actually perhaps beginning to notice even the struggle of trying to take this practice seriously right now. And if you are struggling, if you're like, oh, this is like bullshit, I don't know what Lama Rod is doing, I don't know what he's doing, what kind of version of Buddhism this is. I'm just projecting my own insecurities, that's all I'm doing. I am not reading anyone's mind right now. But let's just say you're struggling like that, right? Even turn your attention to that doubt that this is working, that this is a valid practice right now. And what could be useful for some of you is to turn your attention to your doubt around the potential to get free, period. Because a lot of you can use some work around that. So wherever you want to go, it's important. Like, get really practical about this. And this is how my practice has been sustained, right? Everything is asking to be tended to. Our doubt about practice, our doubt about liberation, our struggle with suffering, our struggle to be in the world right now, all of that is up for grabs, right? And as you turn your attention to one of these kinds of discomforts, we're going to turn our attention to our first mantra, which is the evoking mantra, the awakening mantra. Om Min Sange Kino Soha. Medicine Buddha, please think of me. Please remember me. Please gaze upon me. To chant this, to ignite officially or formally the consciousness of Medicine Buddha, of the great healer. And we begin with and then we'll chant the mantra 3 times, and then end with the okay? So we begin. So as we've offered this mantra, I invite you to imagine that this experience of discomfort that you're bringing awareness to, that it begins to transform into this expression of Medicine Buddha. Let the struggle, or the thing that we're struggling with itself, including the energy of struggle, let it become an expression of Medicine Buddha. This expression of an awakened being, free from this delusion, this misunderstanding about the nature of phenomenal reality. Begin to free the struggle and the discomfort that we're struggling with. Let it be freed within this awakened nature, this awakened consciousness of this great Buddha. Allowing ourselves to surrender to the space, the emptiness, the energy that Medicine Buddha is beginning to awaken for us in this practice. And again, not thinking about how to do this, but just letting it happen in a way that feels natural and appropriate for us. And so when you're ready, we turn our attention to our main mantra, Teata, Baconze, Ma Baconze, Rasu Sumungate, So And as we begin to chant this, or as you begin to listen along, just letting ourselves surrender, expand, open. Let's begin to tend to what we struggle with by just letting go of the reaction, the reactivity, and just letting it be. Trusting that we are being held by Medicine Buddha and all the Buddhas, who themselves are simply ways in which emptiness has shaped itself into medicine for us in this moment. We begin. O te anda beginze, ma beginze, razu sumungate soha. 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 Te anda beginze, ma beginze, razu sumunga rezoa. Deyanda umbegenze begenze ma begenze razu sumunga tesoa. 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 So beginning to lift up the prayers, offer the prayers from the community, and again we call into the space all the beings who can hold these prayers, all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharma protectors, all beings of light, all guardians and spirits of the elements, to all of our benevolent ancestors, to all beings of light, to every being in this universe who is dedicated to liberation from delusion. We call you into this space and we offer these prayers. We come with the purest intentions to be of benefit and to see the end of suffering. So bless us that we may offer these prayers to you, that you may work on our behalf along with us to bring about the fruition of these prayers. And we began with prayers for my upcoming travels, that I may learn from and be of service to the parents that I work with while I'm abroad, to offering prayers for the well-being of all, prayers that I may recognize my true nature and be of benefit to all beings, offering prayers for my healing from an intensive physical trial, an intense life of oppression that's now being brought to consciousness. May I finally heal my depression and letting go and grieving my victimhood. Continue to offer many deep prayers and vows of gratitude for Medicine Buddha and all of my guides, their help and protection and patience. Offering prayers for the courage to leap and not squander my life. Offering prayers for S as she grieves the sudden death of her husband this morning. Offering prayers for all beings to be safe. Offering prayers of gratitude for A and prayers of clearing for all the domestic and internal physical disturbance towards tranquility and ease. Offering prayers for M that he prioritizes stillness, tenderness, responsibility, learning, and awakened care for himself and others. Offering prayers for Pauline that she accesses the resources to get free. Offering prayers for Jeffrey that this month he lands employment that is lasting, lucrative, and fulfilling. Offering prayers for wisdom in the midst of conflict with loved ones. Offering prayers for support and love to rain down on Em and her whole family, that they all find healing for the violence and traumas they've been through. May they find relief and peace and ease and all that they need. Offering prayers for myself that I find guidance and wisdom as I consider the next steps in my life. May I have the support I need to make decisions that sow seeds of growth, freedom, and thriving in my life. especially for clarity and around intimate relationships. May I consider myself worthy of love and care, offering prayers for healing for my physical health, that I can begin to thrive again. May I share the wealth of all that I have with all, offering prayers of gratitude for H and prayers for his continued thriving, that he only receives copious love and tender care. Prayers for my mom, brother, sister-in-law to soften and open, offering prayers for release from the spells and grips of my biological family, offering prayers for myself as I deal with grief and fatigue, prayers for friend AA who is dealing with health issues and burnout, for NS, may they and their family keep their house and may they get the new job, offering prayers that I can be kinder to Rita and to not feel so triggered by her, offering prayers for Elle that they can find a way to clean and organize their apartment to keep from getting evicted, offering prayers for my ability to handle my loud and selfish neighbor, that I can have compassion for his mental illness, but still feel empowered to create the boundaries that I can, offering prayers for gender diverse people and people in Palestine, Congo, Syria, Ukraine, and Yemen. May all have what they need, offering prayers for my continued exponential growth and flourishing as spring and emergence draws me out and demands more. Please help me feel safe externalization. Prayers for gratitude for Lillian and her continued protection and thriving. Prayers that my new project benefits myself and all beings. Please help me feel safer in my relationships, more honest, authentic, more relaxed, less activated, less confused, more clear, and more accepting. Offering prayers for John Sewell, who is the father of my friend Karen B., who is 98 and entered hospice tonight. Prayers for John and their whole family at this time. Offer prayers for my intense anxiety, which seems to be related to both present life and past life experiences. The current tide of events feels far too familiar to Germany when Hitler and the Nazis took over. The intersection of physical, emotional, collective challenges is extremely difficult. Prayers to rely on my practice and to be reliable for all others who need support. Offering prayers for my children and grandchildren and all others who are stressed out at this time. Offering prayers for Muhammad Khalid, the Palestinian student who was picked up by ICE over the weekend, and for his family and all people who are being impacted by these policies. May my sweet Fairchild little soul who's suffering from illness experience strength and peace. May everyone whose mental health has been impacted by these atrocious times also grow strength at moments of peace and love you. Offering prayers for Nellie, Kathleen, Matthew, Annette, Sergio, Elder Commons, Muhammad Khalil and his wife. Offering prayers to endure perimenopause without being extremely or completely insane. Prayers more specifically for my brain, prayers for deep rest and sleep, prayers for healing, prayers for peaceful interaction, prayers for my home coming together and for slow and steady productivity, prayers to become the medicine, prayers for N, R, J, and C, prayers for dearest Lama Rod, prayers for all beings and realms and timelines to be free, prayers for the abolition of all forms of carcerality, prayers for a beloved community working towards liberation and abolition, prayers for M and R, may they experience healing and freedom, offering prayers for creativity and connection, prayers for Ellie, prayers to let go of craving a supportive mother and an alive sister, prayers for Shannon that she may receive the medicine she needs and choose freedom in this life, prayers for Carly as her Saturn returns, prayers for the Henny Penny and all of us. It feels like the sky's falling with all of the plane crashes, prayers of healing for the victims, family members, communities, and the world. Ashe. Offering prayers for finding the perfect home for Luke and myself, prayers for Royale and Sophie. May the heartache that once seemed heavy now soften, transforming into wisdom, compassion, and deeper understanding. May forgiveness blossom, not rush, be unfolding in its own time, bringing peace for each of us, both within and between. Offering prayers for J and C, may they release suffering. Remember their all unlimited nature. May I learn to release resentment and embrace ease. May conflict diminish. Offering prayers for Ren, that they find clarity and peace in the experience of pain that they're having, that they heal their gut. Prayers that I set the boundaries I need to focus my energy into my greatest aims and purpose. Offering prayers for F, that they complete the spiritual work that they need to find and integrate the greater wholeness that they seek. Offering prayers that I may find a constant spiritual practice that is appropriate for me. Offering prayers for D and J and everyone coming together tomorrow to process and reckon with the racism-based or racism-related harm that has transpired in our organization. May we handle the meeting with awakened care that has rippled effects of benefits for all beings born and yet to be born. Offering prayers to let go of trying to control how my relationships take shape and letting love be boundless, remembering it already is. Offering prayers for us to get free as soon as possible, to be of service to the liberation of all beings. Offering prayers for Claire, George, Barbara, and my ancestors. Offering prayers to my health and all the providers I'm working with. Prayers for all of my loved ones. May we all have what we need. Prayers that we remain protected, safe, and that continue to do this work of liberation together. Offering prayers for my beloved. Prayers for abundant resources. Prayers that we remember we are free. Offering prayers for my mental health recovery and the safe reuniting of my mind and body. Prayers that I am able to get the support I need to ground, experience embodiment, align with right relationship or right relation between myself and others. May I regain the knowings that protect me from bypassing. And offering prayers that I find ways to protect myself from internalizing violence and its compounding amidst current limitations. And offering prayers that I may release perfection, hold on to my reality, and regain my own sense of one realness. Offering prayers for the opportunities and places to transmute my grief in the collective and stop holding on to all of these truths on my own. Prayers for protection through this. Prayers against spectacle and the urge to self-abandon. Prayers I may transmute past and current experiences of objection, but offering prayers of support and guidance in my coming life decisions. Let my beloved in my life be taken care of so that I may follow the path that is mine. And offering prayers for Kelsey and her family as they say goodbye to her father-in-law. Prayers that he is surrounded by love and care in this transition from this life. Prayers for all those standing up against fascism and for their safety. Offering prayers to my mother as she continues to navigate Alzheimer's, to Pi in the event of her mother's passing, to Roy Ayers and his transition, and prayers to my extended family in Gaza, the West Bank, the Sudan, and the Congo. Offering prayers for R and his wife as she navigates the Bardo, as she finds peace in her next life. I offer prayers also for Beverly Taylor as she transitions into the Bardo and spirit world, as she be held by the ancestors, and may she continue her awakening into becoming an ancestor. We continue to pray for the liberation of all beings from all systems of harm and violence. We continue to pray for the complete abolition of all these systems as well, that these systems release us, that we may remember our innate awakened nature, that we may all remember as quickly as possible that we are expressions of this divine sacred emptiness space and fundamental potential energy. May we all return back to this remembrance as quickly as possible. May we all become Buddhas now. May this be so as quickly as possible. We offer these prayers to all of our benefactors, to all of those who have gathered, and we ask you to continue to work to bring about all these prayers. And may we be empowered also with agency and with power and with magic and inspiration to also bring about the fruition of these prayers as well. So we return back to the mantra just for a little bit. We're going to go just an extra 10 minutes tonight. So as we return back into the mantra, continuing to do the work that you've been doing previously, letting go, surrendering, being with, offering to the earth, whatever feels appropriate for this last few minutes of practice, right? So we return to the mantra. O Eyanda Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Razumungate Soha. Eyanda Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Razumungate Soha. Eyanda Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Razuzumungatesoa. 제야다옴 베근세 베근세 마베근세 라스 수문가르소아 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 So when you're ready, just turning your attention back to the seat, just touching the seat again, the weight of your body, the seat rising to hold you, touching the earth again. We offer deep gratitude to Medicine Buddha, to any other supportive aspect of our practice, including the earth, including other Buddhas, along with Medicine Buddha, just offering some gratitude into the practice. For all the supports of your practice, just offer gratitude. We just imagine that everything just begins to dissolve back into emptiness. The struggle, the suffering, even Medicine Buddha. Everything just dissolves into the emptiness of our minds, like water returning back to the ocean. Letting our minds rest just for a moment, open, fluid, not focusing or anything, just open, spacious, fluid, no concepts, just resting with the emptiness itself. So when you're ready, allow yourself to come back into the moment, allowing your body to reform itself, just in case you're out of your body, returning back to the body, to the seat, beginning to slowly reawaken your body through simple movements, through some deep breathing, deep cleansing breaths. And we begin to shift our attention to our last prayer, which you'll see which you'll begin to see in the chat. Shanti Davis prayer from the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, the guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. And we begin chanting or singing this 3 times. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of all living creatures be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, in a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. And finally, may I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I always be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for your practice. And as always, I can continue to encourage you to rewatch all the past videos on YouTube and to stay in your practice throughout the week and to maybe pull things out of our practices that feel really generative for you and just to work with that and see what happens. But besides that, thank you so much, and I will see you next Monday, same bat time, same bat channel.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Lama Rod. I just dropped in the chat. Just thank you all for being here and sharing your healing presence and power. Thank you for everything that that presence makes possible. And this has been going on for 5 years, and I've been to as many sessions as I'm able to be at, and not a single session have I ever felt that Lama Rod has phoned any of this in a single time. And so if this offering supports your liberation, we really can't do this work without you. Every single drop into this bucket helps to strengthen the medicine. And so if you're, whatever it means for you, please consider giving generously to help the medicine just be unavoidable, a deluge. Um, yeah. So thank you so much, Lama Rod. May you have all the resources you need to continue showing up in the way that you have for the past 5 years and for the eternity that you would like to continue showing up. Thank you for everything. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you around the bend. Check out the quick link stock for any other offerings that are coming up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. May you be safe and protected and powerful. And we'll see you next time. Take care.